All right. So today I'm here with Sandy Petersen of the Cthulhu Mythos fame and several other games, more games than I can name on the website, actually. He's going to talk to us today about his games related to role-playing, mainly 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons.
And I assume Call of Cthulhu and...
Yes, Call of Cthulhu.
Not RuneQuest, but...
Yeah, Call of Cthulhu, all RPGs. I know you got a lot of tabletop games too. So
yeah. Well, I do have a lot of
ones.
tabletop games too. And
yes.
One of the byblows from that is that we've started doing a line of figures based on the figures from the tabletop games. But the figures obviously are intended for use for RPGs, right? So, So if you need Cthulhu in your Traveler adventure, now you can get one.
Cool. Yeah, I saw those, and all the multicolors and stuff is pretty cool, actually. And I was just going to show you.
We have dozens of those figures now. So
yeah, I saw those. And this is the Cthulhu Mythos for 5th edition. Let's see. I'm get back a little further.
Yes, there's the D&D book.
My Cthulhu background is kind of blending in with it, but
yeah.
There you go.
We earlier did a Pathfinder book, and the 5e book came later. So of course it has more stuff because that's how it works. And I just got in the mail the sadly entirely German language version of that for the Dark Eye, the German role playing system.
Yeah,
it translates into English as the Dark Eye, but really it means the Black Eye. But that means something different in English, so they don't want to.
Yes. So they should just call it the Evil Eye or something.
Probably, but
I think that's what they mean.
But it's super fancy. I mean, they have like hardback novels in it, and a book with my symbol on it, and then it's just like a notebook with blank pages with a monogram. It's like they really went. Well, I guess they're Germans, right? So
yeah, so it's
not done. If it's not overdone, it's not done enough.
That's Germans, right. If it's not like over-engineered, it's not German.
That's right.
Cool. All right, so let's get started. I guess a little background about yourself. Like, how did you get into creating content? Because I know you're very prolific.
Okay. Well, I mean, I started role-playing games literally in 1974 when D&D first came out. I mean, playing the 1st edition. And after I'd done that for 7 or 8 years, obviously, of course, the great virtue and flaw of original D&D was that it was impossible to play because like you couldn't figure out the combat rules and you couldn't figure out the magic rules, and there was all these things that weren't in it that you had to basically make up for yourself. So everyone made up your own stuff, and by 1978 I was starting to make up stuff and send it to Chaosium, and Chaosium started publishing some, and then in 1980 they accepted it and they published the role-playing game Call of Cthulhu, which was how I started making content for. Before that, I'd done it for RuneQuest, but then Call of Cthulhu came along, and they had me do that, and it was the first modern era game I'd ever tried to do. So it was odd thinking about it. It took me a year to plan it out because I was like, well, in a normal D&D game, you go and you fight the monsters and you get experience, and then you level up, and then you go fight the monsters and you get experience and you level up, and then it's like a standard little cycle. But Call of Cthulhu couldn't work that way, or at least in my head it couldn't. So I made this weird recurring game. I then dropped out of graduate school, got a full-time job working for Chaosium, did role-playing stuff, and developed the original Arkham Horror game. I wasn't the designer, just the developer, but I developed it, Arkham Horror. And then I went into video games, which I did that almost exclusively until 2012 when I founded Petersen Games. I started doing board games, and now I'm back doing role-playing games again. But through all those years, from 1974, I almost always, occasionally there's a few months off, but I had a role-playing campaign that I would play.
Nice.
So I had a campaign that lasted like 20 years and one that lasted 14 years, and
wow.
So I had many lengthy role-playing campaigns.
That's pretty amazing.
So really, I come at it not as a creator of content, but as a person that plays the games and wants to have cool things to play. So, I mean, I designed Cthulhu Wars because that game wasn't out for me to play, so I made it so I could play it.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. What video games did you make?
Let's see. I worked on Civilization with Sid Meier.
Mhm.
I did most of the levels for the original Doom and Doom 2. I worked on Quake, and I worked on the entire Age of Empires series.
Wow. So all the classics.
Well, I mean, some of the classics.
Yeah, some of the. Yeah, not all of them, but yeah, some of
There's classics I did not work on. I didn't work on World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I didn't work on Final Fantasy. Of course, the cat was all Japan, right? But I did
Yes.
work on Doom, Quake, Age of Empires series, Age of Mythology, Halo Wars, and Civilization. So those are probably used to be what I was most renowned for.
Okay.
Now Doom is like this ancient thing that no one remembers because they were
Yes.
not born when it came out in 1993. But
Well, it was the big stuff in the '90s. You know, about the only things you're missing is like
yeah, I mean, it invented the first-person shooter. Yeah.
Exactly. The only things you're missing is like Mech Warrior, Command and Conquer, Warcraft, and the
Well, I did
role-playing games.
Empires, which is like it's an RTS like Warcraft.
Yes.
But historical.
Yes.
One of my jobs on Age of Empires actually was to make sure that the historical stuff was more or less accurate.
Cool.
So they would come to me and say, "What's a unique Russian unit we can have in the game?" And I would have to figure out what the Russians had that no one else had.
Yeah, those sounds different and unique and flavorful. Nice. And so then you got back into you made your own game company, and you got back into Pathfinder first, right? And then
Well, yeah. Well, I was board games for years and years, and then actually my former business manager thought that I should do a Pathfinder. This is back when Pathfinder was bigger than D&D, and he liked Pathfinder. And so, if you can't do things you like, then why even make games, right? So he said, "Let's do a Cthulhu Mythos for Pathfinder, and I'll do most of the work. You just write some background stuff." And then he completely dropped the ball, and I had to write like almost the whole thing. And then it came out, and then I said it said D&D is bigger than Pathfinder now because the cycle of life had continued and D&D was out competing it. And I said we should do a D&D, and so we did, and we added more stuff because we could. It's weird because the D&D book that we did actually has more new material than the Pathfinder book, but it's shorter because in the Pathfinder book we also included stats for all the Lovecraft monsters that were already in Pathfinder. So it was like it was kind of a duplication of effort.
Yeah.
In D&D we didn't do that.
Okay.
So, and then from that I decided that I wanted to have campaigns and scenarios to play because those were well accepted. So we started doing what we call Cthulhu Mythos Sagas, and you had them there. I showed them up. We had Ghoul Island, which is 4 hardback volumes that we guessed would take about 6 months to play. Obviously, everyone's time will be different. That's the Snake Granddaddy. That's the second kind of in the series. And then we have Dark Worlds coming, and then we've also started to download a free scenario from our newsletter every month, I think. Just a free scenario.
Yeah, and like a short one shot type thing.
Yeah. So the idea behind the sagas is that you subscribe to them, and then it's $20, I think, a month, and you get this big hardback book from 60 to 90 pages, and it has essentially 3 or 4 adventures. If it's 3 adventures, one of them is usually longer, and it should take about a month to playing once a week.
Okay.
And then the next month you get another one, and then you kind of go through, and then when you've played 6 months of it, then you're done with that saga. And although it does have hooks for how to continue it if you want, and then the next saga comes in and you play in a different thing. And
cool. Like Pathfinder Adventure Paths, basically.
They're exactly like the Adventure Paths, except I think they're nicer in quality of production. Because I helped write them, I feel shy about saying that they're actually better adventures, because that's for the game master to decide, not me. But they're good adventures.
Yes. And
they're horror based, which is cool with Lovecraft and stuff. And they're D&D instead of Pathfinder, if that matters to you.
Yes, it's different.
And the hardback, which is
cool. different way of playing for sure.
Yeah, different way of playing. And then the idea is we'll keep these going every month, and every 4 months another campaign will end. And then the other thing we have going on is, I mentioned the Black Eye. The Germans published the Black Eye version.
I have one question for you though on these sagas. Do you guys? I know you're doing PDFs of it. Are you also releasing maps? I can't remember.
Yes, we're releasing maps without the numbers on them.
Okay.
And the key for you to so the players will. I think we may not have done it with one of the sagas, and then there was a mighty outcry, and so now
Yeah.
we're doing them all.
Well, everybody has to use. You have to play online now. So if you don't have maps,
So anyway, so we have the maps without details, and you can.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be releasing those on it, and
Cool.
and then later on we'll probably talk about the Planet Apocalypse stuff that I've got for role playing, which is coming later this month.
Yeah.